REST, also known as representational state transfer, is a type of software architecture that defines a set of constraints or principles designed to guide the development of network-based applications and more specifically client-server applications, with a focus on the usage of uniform interfaces, the independent deployment of components, and the creation of a layered architecture. But beyond that, the REST principles have been widely accepted by the industry as a standard for creating stateless and reliable web APIs called RESTful APIs. I'm Raz and you're watching Explain It to a Duck. An API is a software interface that offers a service to other pieces of software. Simply put, it's a set of rules, sometimes referred to as a contract, that define how a client will communicate with the server. It allows to share resources and information while maintaining control, security, and opacity on the underlying server-side mechanisms. For example, whenever you open your weather app on your smartphone, an API call is performed by the client on the server in charge of retrieving the current weather for your location and sending it back to you. More generally, a RESTful API enables the client to send requests to the server in order to perform CRUD operations on the database. CRUD being an acronym for Create, Read, Update, and Delete. These requests are usually sent over the network using the HTTP protocol, which is the Internet Protocol, and are mainly composed of a URL, a method, a header, and a payload. Methods are verbs that define the operation that the client wishes to perform on the server, like get to retrieve a record, post to create one, put to update one, and delete to delete one. The header contains information such as metadata, cookies, authorizations, and so on. And the payload contains the data the client wants to send over to the server, like an email address, for example, in the case of a profile update operation. While some APIs impose a very strict framework on developers, RESTful APIs can be developed using virtually any programming language and support a variety of data formats, JSON being the most popular as it's both readable by humans and by machines. Now, in order for a web service to have an API that's considered RESTful, it must align with the following REST principles. The access to its resources should go through a uniform interface, as all of the API requests for the same resource should look the same no matter from which client they come from, whether it's a browser, an Android app, or a script running on a Linux server. The client and the server must be completely decoupled, as the only things the client should know in order to access a resource is its unified resource identifier, also called URI. The API must be stateless, as each request sent by the client is considered unique and therefore must contain all of the necessary information for the server to process at once. Resources sent by the server must be cacheable on the client side unless explicitly indicated in order to improve performance, so that the client doesn't request the same data repeatedly if it's not expired. And finally, it must allow for a layered architecture, which means allow a request or response to go through several layers like security, cache, or load balancing without being modified and without the client being aware of it. And that wraps it up for today, guys. Thanks for watching. Feel free to share, like, and comment this video if you find content useful, and see you in a week for another episode of Explain It to a Duck. Cheers!